Welcome back to another episode of the Isn't That Rich podcast. Today we have a guest on from FSB Insurance to give us an update on what's going on in the insurance world. He has been in the insurance industry for over 20 years and with Williams Associates and now FSB Insurance, which is now FSB Insurance, I should say. So we are excited to have Nathan Ashby on today. Welcome, Nathan.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We were excited to get another insurance agent on because there's a lot going on with it.
There is.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place right now in the insurance world.
That's for sure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into the insurance business anyway?
Sure.
Yeah.
The old adage is you're either born into insurance or you just fall into it. And so I just kind of fell into it, really. Wasn't born into it, but I took a insurance course in college, kind of liked it. Met a gentleman at a country club that I worked for in Evansville in college. He said, "Hey, when you're done with college, let's talk." Started working for him. It was an independent agency, just like FSB Insurance. Did that over 20 years ago and haven't looked back. So I guess this has been my career since completing college. So
no one's ever approached me about selling insurance. I guess I don't have the sales.
You don't have a sales face, Ashley? No, just kidding. No, we're excited to hear about it. And besides the insurance world, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm married. I have one daughter. She's 8 years old. She keeps us very active outside of workplace. So she's active in sports and several different things. So it's a busy life.
That's right.
And involved in a lot of community organized different events there in our town. So.
Because you're from Harrisburg.
From El Dorado, actually.
From El Dorado,
Yep.
okay. And now do you live in Harrisburg now?
No.
Still in El Dorado,
Yep.
okay.
Oh, you had a long drive this morning.
No, not too bad. Not too bad.
Well, good. Well, let's get started. Let's get into our market overview. So what do you specialize in FSB Insurance? Because I know some agents specialize in different kind of insurance. What's your strong suit?
So I do mostly commercial lines and life insurance. I will also do home and auto. In a small rural setting like we have, you can't really just specialize in one trade. Yeah. So you got to have a lot of diversity in the products that you offer and who you work with. So mostly commercial, life insurance, but then also home and auto. And some health insurance, too.
Okay, I feel like you wear many hats.
You do. You have to be multi-talented in that regard.
Well, and that means that you have to be knowledgeable in all of those different...
And licensed,
right?
And licensed, yep, correct.
Yeah. So that's something to think about when you're looking for an insurance agent, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is going on in the insurance world, Nathan? I mean, that's the main question today is what's actually happening out there? What are you seeing?
It's not a fun place right now, unfortunately, in the insurance world. You know, insurance is kind of defined as the premiums of many to pay for the losses of few. Think about that. So we all put in to pay for some losses. So right now, there are so many losses. The losses of few have become the losses of many, and it's created what we would call a hard market. And so basically the hard market means that the supply and the demand. So there's so many people wanting the insurance, but so many carriers are backing off and taking another look at kind of where they are profitability-wise and measurements of making the money, because let's face it, they're all for business. In business, they're not for profits. So basically, a lot of carriers are just looking a lot closer at what business they'll take and at what price they'll take it. Okay. So it's created this hard market, and
Yeah. That's evolved, right? So it's not always been as hard as it is today.
Definitely.
Okay.
Insurance is a cyclical business, meaning, every few years it comes back around. So in this 20 years that I've been in the business, this is definitely the hardest market that I've experienced.
Really?
So, several probably prior to that, a lot of the older guys in this business would tell you, yes, we have experienced this. So this is really my first time experiencing this, and
you've been in it for 20 years.
right,
Yeah, that's
right.
crazy.
So right.
I want to kind of talk more about what you just said about the premiums of many to pay for the losses of few. And you're saying, well, now there's losses of many. So can you kind of give us a more specific example of that? So does that mean like, okay, we're seeing a lot of houses that are needing repairs and they have to kick into their insurance, or repairs probably isn't the right word, but I don't know, maybe you need a new roof or something, or damages has happened.
Right.
Does that mean like there's been a lot of things that have happened that the insurance companies are now having to actually spit the money out for?
Correct. And it's
And they're like,
countrywide. Countrywide. So everything from your coastal areas having storm damage to your Midwest that has major windstorms constantly, to your fires in California, to
So it's a lot of like natural disaster
yes,
type things.
yep.
Maybe
and
even
it all adds up.
and into the health care world, even I think about, I hate to keep talking about COVID, but like, do you think that's had an effect with the people having to use healthcare insurance more? And
Yeah, but going back to the
and
property,
are people getting in a bunch of car accidents?
Yes.
Does this make sense?
Yes,
What I'm saying,
definitely.
like,
so
it's
you
catastrophic
think of,
on all levels.
I feel that COVID has played a role in the cost of these repairs, more so than anything. So
That makes
you
sense.
think about your building material cost, what it was 5 years ago for, a 2x4. It's luckily the prices have come down some on building materials from the height of COVID, but it's still very costly to rebuild, repair, your homes or your business, your building. But then also from an automobile standpoint, the car parts that are used to fix your cars are more expensive today than they were 2 years ago. Yeah. The labor cost, you're now having to pay someone a higher wage than what you did before to either rebuild that house or fix that car, just to attract a good quality employee.
Yeah, that's so true.
So those premiums of few for or premiums of many for the losses of few, the dollar amount of those claims are greater than they once were just recently.
Yeah. I feel like there's been so many more natural disasters, like we've talked about, like the hurricanes.
Yeah.
I feel like there's one or two
There's
every
always
year.
a
There's
forest
always
fire.
something. And even, I had to take out a huge claim last year on one of the buildings I own. There was the pipes froze. It never freezes that hard here. This building, we've had this medical building for how many? It's been built since the 90s, and oh my gosh. Now all of a
Little
sudden
copper
the
pipe, you guys should see
froze
it.
and it
I wish you
cost
had
how
it.
much in damage, and I do have it. I saved
Yeah.
it. But it's crazy.
Yep.
So just those things that are happening more often now. That man. So you talked a little bit about COVID and the price of everything going up and inflation, and that's really getting down to it. The prices of everything is going up. So and this is another thing too, is we learned that, when you take out your homeowner's policy and they come out and look at your house and they say, oh, to rebuild this would cost this much. Well, that was however many years ago. And now if you take out a claim, explain that, get your homeowner's insurance and the price that home is at that time. And now something happens 5 years down the road. Well, with this inflation, it's not going to cost the same to repair as it did 5 years ago. And so the replacement costs are way more than what you actually signed up for.
Yes, and that's definitely something that people need to be doing now is educating themselves on what coverages they have, and are these coverages still adequate to the day you took the policy out, or do adjustments need to be made? The replacement cost to build a house today versus 3 years ago, 5 years ago. 95% of homeowners are probably underinsured, meaning they don't have enough to replace like, kind, and quality of what they have today.
Yeah. Man, that makes it tough.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine your house burning down and then you go to your insurance agent and they're like, if it costs $200,000 to build a new house for your family of whatever size and your policy only covers $120,000. I mean, dang, that stinks. I think that's like really important that like people aren't educated on that to go actually talk. You know, we always like preach that, like go talk to your insurance agent, but like it is really important when things like this are happening in our economy, like your insurance is just as important as, you know, your job every week. Like I don't know, looking into those things and taking inventory of your finances.
Yeah. Absolutely. I also think that, and this is just me being naive when it comes to having to get insurance. Like, I remember we closed on a building and it was literally the day before where I was like, I need insurance. I have to have insurance to close. And I think that happens a lot where people aren't actually taking the time to see what they actually need for that building, what they need coverage on. And they're just down to the wire and they put their agent kind of in a bind too, because you know, they can't get you what's best for your needs. And so it's important to start that process early on when you're thinking about making any changes.
Right. Too. Yeah. And think about what you're buying and what's important to you and why you're buying it.
Yeah. But relationship is so important because thankfully I did have a good relationship where they could get me something in time, but man, I didn't make it easy for my agent. That's for sure.
In light of some recent events, what are you seeing in trends for individual coverage? Like, what are people really needing right now?
Well, it's tough. I mean, my own personal auto insurance took a 48% increase. That's a pretty good chunk of change.
Wow.
And, you know, I didn't really have anybody to go complain to. It was just me.
Yeah.
And so I shopped it around and looked and I thought, well, I'm still in the best possible scenario that I have out there. So I bit the bullet and paid the premium. And
40% more from last year.
From last year.
Wow.
Yep. No claims, no, you know, just like everybody says.
Good driving record.
I didn't have any claims, drove it limited miles, but that's just where it's at. And, you know, a lot of people are, you know, looking at ways to kind of trim the fat if they can. And there's a few ways people are doing it. You know, maybe you've had an extra car that you rarely drive. People are selling that extra car, or people are, you know, looking at deductible changes and that sort of thing. So just a way to kind of soften the blow of these increases.
Yeah.
Of the premiums. Because like, okay, I like to go like this. If your premium is higher, your deductible's lower. Right.
Yeah.
And if your deductible's higher, your premium. So probably people are like upping their deductible so they don't have to pay a lot up front.
Right.
But then, you know, it's like gambling, Nathan.
You use it.
If you got to use it, then you got to pay out of pocket.
That's right.
Huh.
Yep.
Luck of the draw.
Yep. A little more skin in the game.
I have a funny story. A couple weeks ago, Flo from Progressive messaged me.
Oh.
And she said, congratulations, you're a great driver. You get bragging rights. It made me so mad because I feel like you see those commercials where they tell you, like, if you're a good driver or whatever, like, that's their company's like screen
slogan.
I don't know. You know, you get like a benefit.
Yeah.
And it was just like a bragging right. It made me so mad. I emailed Flo back. And I was like, listen here, Flo. I swear I did. I can show you my email. She didn't email me back. I was like, I want the best rate.
Yeah.
I didn't get an email back.
No. So
their commercials
that's
are just
a good question though, is how do you manage people's expectations when it comes to, I mean, that's gotta be so hard for you as an agent, like explaining that to them that, okay, how do I make you comfortable knowing that that's just how it is right now? Because, I mean, there are so many people out there that are just right shopping. And,
Yeah.
I mean, God, I don't know how you do it. It's hard.
It's difficult. I mean, it's not a lot of positive conversations.
Yeah.
And I think if you can just work through it, and like I say, if there's some coverage out there that maybe you don't need that you thought you did at once, maybe you've got an older vehicle that it's to the point where you think, do I want to still continue carrying physical damage on it, or do I just want to use liability only?
Right.
You know, let's trim it back to liability only, keep it legal, and then, you know, there's some savings there. Or, you know, like we say, just look at those deductibles. You know, on your homeowner's insurance. You know, is you've carried earthquake and mine subsidence. Those are two things that are kind of pretty important to Southern Illinois. But
See, I didn't know that.
a lot of people are you know, looking at that from an aspect as I just soon save that premium. So
Okay.
we always offer it, but it's an optional coverage.
So, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this question popped into my head, and I could probably go on a spider web of questions with this, but I'm thinking about like car insurance and people's premiums. Have you seen people like just straight up dropping insurance? And I know that's not necessarily, I know you're supposed to have insurance on your vehicle, but do you think we're going to see if like premiums literally get too high that people can't afford it, that they're just willing to risk dropping complete coverage and driving uninsured?
Not typically, just because the law states that you have to have liability insurance, but it goes back to,
But then why do we pay for uninsured like motorists?
well, it's if you have uninsured and underinsured.
Okay.
So if someone doesn't carry enough liability limits and you're in an accident with them, then your insurance will
Kick
pick
in.
up.
Okay. See, I was misunderstood in that. Now I'm corrected.
Yes, the law says you're supposed to carry insurance. Now,
The law.
Does everyone do that? You're also supposed to wear your seatbelt.
Yeah.
But
I think those, like if that was something that happened, let's say 50% of Illinois just like dropped off
boycotted.
there.
Just boycott it.
And then if I'm willing to pay for insurance, now is my premium 300% higher?
Probably
You know,
so.
those are just, these are things I think about, Nathan.
Right. Good point.
Well, you said that you have a lot of options, but I wouldn't know I even have those options to, you know, pull back or scale back on some of the insurance. So I think that's another reason why it's great to have a close relationship with your agent, because I won't even know where to start when it comes to reevaluating where I can scale back. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yep.
For sure. So can you give some specific instances, Nathan, to how circumstances have directly influenced the spike in insurance rates for specific types of coverage? Because Ashley kind of mentioned earlier, what are the types of insurance where, you know, you're seeing this spike? And
Right.
so what are some examples of that?
Some like specific events that have triggered something?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
like even with your carriers, like what's
Okay.
going on with them?
Sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, you know, the storms and different disasters widespread. But for instance, here in the Midwest, Illinois and Indiana last year were beat up with some major windstorms. And if you've got a carrier that's a regional carrier, just basically in the Midwest, we've got one carrier, for example, back in June, they came out to us and they said, starting in June, we're not going to take on any new home or auto policies, no new customers, till further notice, for the state of Illinois and Iowa. So
It doesn't seem fair.
no, well, it's hard to grow much business whenever they tell you you can't write any business in there. So that was all attributed to just major claims that they're paying out. So, you know, they're paying out more than they're taking in. So they wanted to just put a pause on any new business. So that basically they said, we'll reevaluate that in October. So in October of 23, we came to that point and they said, well, we're going to go basically another 6 months with that same stance. So we will go close to a year without putting any new home or auto in that with that carrier. And they completely, since then, they've pulled out of Iowa altogether.
Yikes.
For all insurance.
For all of
Everything.
all of home and auto in Iowa, they will no longer be writing in that state.
So when you say they're not in that state anymore,
What happens to policies?
the customer? So their insurance agent has to find them a new carrier.
Correct. Yep. They'll have to rewrite them to a new carrier. So they'll have some time to move that business to another carrier. But when you've got thousands and thousands of policies in a state, that's a big move.
Well, and explain this to me too, because I don't think people understand that an insurance agent, can they work with all kinds of carriers, or are there like conflicts of interest, or how does that work?
Different agencies have different appointments with carriers. So, an agency here in town may not have the same carrier portfolio that we offer. Some may overlap, but, one agency to another may not have the same insurance companies that they work with.
Interesting.
That leads me into this question. I think people have this question a lot. What is the difference between why I would go to an individual agency like FSB Insurance versus just directly going to a carrier like Progressive?
Because you can go online and look at things and get quotes. So, there's people that email me that I don't think I've ever even.
Well, Flo sells direct, but she also works out of the agency system too. So a big difference of going to buy direct from the insurance carrier is a lot of times they're going to just try to offer you the most basic coverage, the lowest limits of liability, just to be legal. So it may not be something that would protect your assets in a liability situation, but enough to be legal. Or they may not offer medical payments, or they may not offer comp and collision on your vehicle. So that's where having the conversation with an agent is going to be helpful, and say, hey, what are your needs? What is going to benefit you, and to buy a policy that way would be much better than just buying online.
Yeah, because Flo won't even email back. Why would you go with her?
Yeah, right.
Well, and you said something earlier about how Southern Illinois earthquake is important because of all the mines and everything. Mine insurance is important, all of that. I'm from Minnesota. I have no idea. Right. So when I'm coming
from
to
here and I have no idea.
Southern Illinois, and I think I'm like, why would I ever need that? There's not earthquakes in Southern Illinois. Are there? I don't know. So I think being able to work with an agent closely, they can kind of direct you to the things that I think that you might not know that you need. I mean, even my VRBO insurance. I mean, I thought I was completely insured until I sat down with somebody who said, hey, that this is a commercial policy that you need. It is. You're running a business out of your home, and that you encounter all kinds of different liabilities than just somebody coming to stay at your house, right? So, right. I mean, just sitting down with somebody makes all the difference. With Flo would never tell you that you need to do that. So.
We are dogging on her today.
I know. Poor Flo.
I want to talk about, I know we've been saying like inflation with houses, cars, labor, that kind of stuff. I want to take a shift and talk about maybe like life insurance, and what kind of, maybe it's kind of a vague question, or it could be a big question. Like, what are you seeing with like life insurance policies? Because the cost of living in general, and I know like house costs come into that, but like just cost of living has taken an influx. So are those policies changing, or do people need to revisit their life insurance policies? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
The overall cost of life insurance, we're not seeing a lot of volatility there. But the biggest thing with life insurance is people need to adjust, kind of what coverages they have. Do you have enough? As your life changes and you have different happenings, whether you're married, you have a child, you get a mortgage, different stages in your life, those are different periods that need to be adjusted. So the life insurance needs for someone that's 45 that's married with a child with a mortgage is not the same as what it was when you were 25 coming out of college. So those things need to be periodically reviewed, with your insurance agent. Do you have enough? The other thing is, who's your beneficiaries on the policy?
Right.
Another time to look at that is when there are life changes. Was there a divorce? Was there a beneficiary that you had that maybe has passed away? You need to update those things sooner than later. Just take a good look at those policies. Don't just put them in the safe and forget them.
Right.
Have you ever maybe paid an ex-wife life insurance? No.
Yes.
Stop it.
Yes, definitely.
Because they didn't change their beneficiary?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, Nathan.
Yep.
So change your beneficiaries, people.
Yep.
Yeah, Eric said he hadn't done that when we
Not
had him
yet.
on here. So
No.
we've got one that's
Yeah.
crazy. Might be a whole nother episode.
It's amazing. Now I'll do life insurance enrollments for different groups, from for their employer, and I'll get to the question, who's your beneficiary, and sometimes they'll think and they'll say this person. I said, okay, the relationship to you. And they'll say ex-spouse. Okay.
Oh.
And so some people will list them. So that's fine too. So. Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, I want to know, are there specific policy aspects that clients should pay closer attention to that you know about them, but it might not be evident to Ashley and I that we need to pay closer attention to when we're thinking about insurance for ourselves?
You stumped me there. That was a good lead up, but
No, but I think
what
so
tell me
many
what
of
we're
us
talking.
we want to review our policy
Mm-hmm.
and especially with the current market, but now are there aspects that we might not think of right away, like the earthquake insurance or
Mine subsided.
mines? Is there other things that we should be looking for when you sit down to review your policies?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now is just the replacement cost that we hit on earlier. That's kind of what the biggest factor in your cost of insurance. But then when you need it, that's what you're going to be relying on the most, is that replacement cost. But you want to make sure you've got enough liability on there too. And the cost of liability is minuscule compared to the cost of the overall homeowner policy or business policy. So, don't go with just the lowest amount of liability. We're in a very litigious business environment these days, and the cost of the liability, you'll be glad that you went ahead and bought a little bit higher limit if you ever had to use it.
Yeah, for sure. We talked a little about, people online shopping for insurance more. And are there any other industry changes before or besides like that you've seen in your 20 years? Like what used to be important that's no longer important? Or, what are you seeing in the industry now?
Well, the younger generation, they are online shoppers more so.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, they're probably not getting all the coverage recommendations that they would if they sat across the desk from somebody, or talked on the phone. So yeah, I think the older generation, they're still in that habit of hey, we want to come in, we want to talk to you, we want you to come into our house, come down, take a look at the house, take measurements, take photos, visually see what you're potentially insuring or you are insuring, and you'll go that route rather than just by text message.
It's so funny because it's so true. Like, why do you need to come to my house? That's what I'm thinking in my mind. But yeah, you absolutely need to see what you're insuring.
Sure. Absolutely.
I think the younger generation that you're talking about, like eventually they'll get to a point though that they'll probably turn into this older generation where they want you to come out because something's
gonna happen.
Something's going to happen. Like it's bad. You're going to have to kick into your insurance at some point. Like, you never know when you're going to have a flood in your house. Like my friend Reagan moved into her brand new home. Flood like 2 weeks later, had to get her insurance, and now she's very
conscious of it.
Yes, and reviews her stuff. And so I think it's just like with anything, until it actually happens to you, you're not thinking it's like that important. And then you're like, woo, I wish I would have.
Right.
It's so funny too. We were looking at our healthcare policy, when you sign, your business.
Oh, me and you.
Yeah. Ashley and I were sitting down. We were looking at our package, whatever. Our
You're like,
insurance
whoa,
package.
I can go to the chiropractor 60 times this year with no copay.
But you don't know what you're actually getting until you sit down and look at it. And I feel like our generation is like, if it will cover me and my insurance agent says adequate, like I'm just going to go with it. I don't even know. I can cross it. I can close on my house. I can do, I can drive my car without actually reviewing what they're getting. I think that's where this generation things have really changed, is that they don't know because they don't take the time, because they don't have that sit down.
Yeah,
so
Definitely. I have some younger clients that are in business for themselves, and I tell them, if you question whether your insurance is adequate for what you're wanting to do, call me first.
Yeah.
Don't do it and then call me. It's a lot harder to put the toothpaste back in the tube. So I said, ask questions. I would just soon. He said, well, I hate to bother you. I said, no, ask ahead. I would just soon we talk about it before you commit to something or do something. So
yeah, that's so good. This has been super enlightening to me. I know. Is there anything you would want to leave with our listeners? Any last piece of advice or anything going on in the market they should be aware of before we close this out?
I think the biggest thing is just educate yourself. Know what you're buying, who you're buying it from. Make sure you're working with a trusted advisor, somebody that has your best interest in mind, somebody that cares for your financial well-being and your personal well-being.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good
Thank
market update.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. If people are trying to get a hold of you, how would they reach you?
I'm in Harrisburg every day at the office. You can reach me there, 618-253-7165, or by email, nashby@myfsb.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you next time.
So, Jill, where do we go from here?
Be sure to check out our show notes for this episode, and also be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.